Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Prairie Podcast. My name is Andrew Weeb. It's so wonderful to have you here today. It's a wonderful day, and it's going to be a wonderful episode because we've got a wonderful person. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you are welcome here. We're going to be listening and hearing a bit from Ellie over here. So why don't you introduce yourself, Ellie? Tell us a bit about who you are, what you're doing here at the college, what kind of program you're on, and we'll go from there.
I'm Ellie. I'm in my third year of the Humanities program, and I'm currently the Academics Commissioner on the Student Union.
Okay, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's fascinating. I might have to come back to that in a moment. Okay, so I'm a bit curious here, as a student, you're in your third year here. You've gone through a couple different classes and you've been through all sorts of environments and situations, assignments, friendships, whatever the case be. I'm curious, would you mind sharing with us one of the biggest things you have learned during your time here as a student?
Well, I came here when I was pretty young, right out of high school, and I think the biggest thing that's been like an overarching theme since I've been here has been trusting in God and learning kind of what that looks like, and not just I trust you, God, but like not actually doing it, but like what that means in practicality for everyday life and all the little moments of life. And I think there's been different waves of that lesson in different areas with different people throughout the past 3 years.
Oh, that's fascinating. So coming to a greater understanding of trust, not just the flippant, I trust you type thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So, that's something you've really learned, but I'm curious, the Ellie that came here, you were pretty young when you first came here, right out of high school, and the Ellie that you are right now, could you kind of point out some ways that maybe you've grown in the last 3 years?
I've grown up a lot in the past 3 years. I was quite shy when I first got here, and kind of had a hard time in high school and just wasn't doing too great. And I've had a lot of spiritual growth here. God's taught me a lot about who He is and what I'm supposed to be doing with my life and who I'm supposed to be, but also like I'm just way more confident. And I have had so many really cool opportunities at Prairie that have kind of pushed me further outside my comfort zone all the time.
Wow. So you found yourself out of the comfort zone multiple times.
Every day.
Every day. Oh, that's fun. And I mean, maybe it's not so fun. Who knows? But
it's a grand adventure.
It's a grand adventure. Well, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing some of that there, Ellie. Okay. I'm curious, you've been through a lot of different classes. Do you have a favorite one, perchance?
That's a hard one. I've genuinely liked most of the classes.
Well, that's good.
When I first came here, I wasn't really into theology, but I've actually really enjoyed my theology classes.
Interesting. Okay. And you started when Ray Yo was professor, correct?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Okay, but now you're with Bill Nyman, right?
But I've had both, and I think they're both really great.
Awesome. You got you got best of both worlds right there. Oh, that's really cool. Okay. Outside of the classroom, though, do you kind of have a story or a favorite moment from your time here you'd be willing to share with us?
So I had the opportunity in the fall to apply for a program that's it was a writing workshop that was happening in Florida with the ABHE, the Association of Biblical Higher Education, through them and another organization. And it was like fully paid for, and I got accepted, and I was sent there for like 5 days just a couple weeks ago, and I got to meet some really cool people and learn some really cool things about Jesus and eat some really good food and sit in the sunshine in February.
I know. That's quite nice, wasn't that? Oh, very good. Okay. So, you've had a good moment here with ABHE. You had a good moment at all the classrooms. You've been learning lots, growing lots. I think it's pretty safe to say you have a lot of experience here at Prairie. So thinking about a student or a prospective student, someone who's thinking about Prairie College, or they're just thinking about college in general, what kind of advice would you have for someone like that? Maybe some things you could share from your own experience here.
I think invest in relationships. More important than school. I think classes are important, but your relationships are way more important with your friends, with your professors, with your family back home. It can be really hard coming to college and leaving family, and then you become disillusioned with some of the things you learned when you were growing up. And I think just focusing on those relationships instead of just school will actually help you in your school anyways.
And I was just thinking of that as you were mentioning it, that actually having healthy relationships with multiple people, family, God, actually, and your professors, and a good, healthy friend group can actually make your academics soar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, school is important, but not that important in the end.
Okay, so as academics counselor, we're talking about academics. Let's bring that up. Just curious, could you give us an explanation, a bit of your role, kind of, and maybe some things that you've been doing over the year and how that's all worked?
So my job is basically a connection point between the staff and the faculty and the students with regards to academic stuff.
Okay.
So I go to a lot of meetings and I talk to a lot of people and I get the chance to help out with events and also address some of the concerns that the student body has or that the faculty has. And I've gotten to work on some cool projects throughout the year and some things that maybe didn't work out so well, but it's a great learning experience
Exactly.
nonetheless. And I have a really cool team of people that I get to work with all the time, which is the best part.
That's really cool. And yeah, being on the student union there, especially in your role, it's a great opportunity for learning. You're learning leadership, you're learning how to implement ideas. And if they fail, what do you do then? If they succeed, what do you do then? So
Yes, it's also very humbling.
yes. Okay, I want to bring this down a little bit narrower to your program, specifically Humanities, or as it's going to be called, Integrated Studies. What do you mind sharing about Humanities in general, and maybe what's happening with this transition?
Yeah, so if you don't know, the Humanities program, it's kind of like the theology program, but we have more of like an arts and science core. And with this new change, they're hoping, but I've talked to them about it, that the name change will be clear on what it is. So there will be options to do a minor in something different. So basically, you're getting like a little taste of everything that Prairie has to offer, which will be then able to transfer on to hopefully 1,000,001 different careers that one might choose in the future.
Okay.
And kind of, if you have that focus, then maybe it'll help people to want to do it.
Okay. That's very fascinating. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. Final question for you, Ellie. I always we love to hear this from people because I think it gets at the heart of what people are going through, what's going on in their lives, and what God is doing. So I'm curious, would you mind sharing with us something that God has been teaching you lately? Maybe he's been bringing up a passage, a story, a verse, or just a lesson.
Well, I seem to come into every year at Prairie with a motto, and it's unintentional, and I do genuinely believe it's not from me, it's from God. And I came into this year with the line in my head, love God and love others, wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And I've had a really difficult year. There's been lots of things that have happened, but that's been coming back again and again in chapels and in conversations. And I went to, when I was in Florida, one of their big things was they were teaching us about calling and what that means. And I'm not someone who has a specific career end goal post Prairie. And so I've been thinking about calling a lot, and I only have a year, and what will I do? And they were teaching us that you can, that God is calling us to be a certain type of people, not necessarily have a certain job.
Yeah.
And so he will use me wherever I go. And they kept bringing up the line, love God and love others. And then I picked a passage for a paper as well last term. It was a theology paper. Turned out the passage was the greatest commandment in Matthew 22. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself.
Wow.
And then I had to write a sermon on that, which was also really cool. So
you really got to dig into that. That's fascinating. So it lined up at the start of the year at this Florida trip, and even in your theology paper, just seemingly to always line up, but might be hinting to that there might have been somebody else involved.
Perhaps.
Well, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that with us, Ellie. And it's an important reminder. I think what you mentioned there about we're called to be a specific type of person. I think we see that time and time again in Scripture, even in Colossians chapter 3. It's about becoming that new person. We're called to be new people, new creation, and the followers of Jesus. So Awesome. Thank you so much, Ellie, for coming on here and sharing some of these thoughts with us. I'm curious, in summary of everything we've talked about here, both on kind of your experience at Prairie, some of the things that God is teaching you. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
I don't think so.
All right. No worries. Okay. Well, thank you everybody out there for joining us at this episode of the Prairie Podcast. This is a real joy to have you with us. It's a joy to have you, Ellie. For all of you interested in learning more about Prairie, you can head to our website, www.prairie.edu. You can check out the Humanities program. I believe it's actually being switched over to a name called Integrated Studies. So if you want to learn a bit more about what's happening there with that program, you can check it out. Make sure to check out Facebook and Instagram as well to stay updated with everything happening on campus. And with that, thank you so much, Ellie. This was a pleasure.